um, as others enter and stuff. But we have Coach Jon-Lamar Hamilton. He's at Livonia Franklin High School. Coach, remind me, previous to this, you were at, I don't want to, is it Dundee? Is that where you were at?
Dexter. So the last
Dexter.
4 years I was at Dexter.
Dexter. All right.
Yeah.
And Coach and I have a little bit of a history because when I was an assistant at the community college level, Jon-Lamar came in from Ann Arbor and played for us and did a phenomenal job. So this is nice to be able to reconnect and to listen to him, and I'll pick up some things that he's doing. I'm positive of it, So Coach, with that introduction, I appreciate you being here and offering your expertise. But I'll give it to you, and then we'll just see where we go. Real quick, coaches, if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask them to him. You can put them in the chat, and I'll ask them. However you want to do it, we want to open this up to you. So, Coach Hamilton, I'm handing it to you now.
All right. Well, let me try to share my screen.
Okay.
Let's start there. Do you?
Yep. Looks good. We can see the screen.
Perfect. Let me switch this.
Yep, we got it.
Oh, perfect. I've been using Google Classroom. I'm a teacher. We've been using Google Classroom. Zoom, I'm not so great with. Let's get started. So as Coach Dennis said, I am Jon-Lamar Hamilton. I go by JL. It's just easier. I am a former college player. Played my first year with Coach Dennis at Kalamazoo Valley. Then I transferred over to Ashland in Ohio. Played some years beyond. This is my 8th year of coaching. But my longest stretch was 4 years at Dexter High School, where I was pretty successful. My 4 years. Overall record ended up being 60-20. Took my first year there, I took a team that didn't win a game in middle school. They were 0-18 or 0-17, and we went 17-3 my first year there. I'm currently the JV coach at Livonia Franklin. This is my 2nd year there, and I also train middle school all the way up to college athletes. So if you have a question or anything, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. I'm going to go through some slides that I had, just touch on a few topics and discuss. So what makes a good JV coach? For me, it's the relationship with the varsity coach. First and foremost, finding a program where you connect well with varsity coach. You want to be able to expand your coaching experience. So you want to gain knowledge. So you want to work with someone that you're able to learn from. But at the same time, you are able to develop your own coaching background, your own coaching identity. Somewhere where your program expectations match. I think that's big. Finding a program with the varsity coaches, you guys are similar in ideas. Doesn't necessarily have to be pinpoint. You guys agree on everything. I think that it's good to have that back and forth where it's maybe I have one mindset on something and he has another, and we can talk it through. Having a voice in the program. So finding a program where you have a voice, not just a program where you're being told what to do all the time, because that's not going to help you develop as you continue to grow in your coaching experiences. Player and team development, understanding different players, what they need, how to develop a team, how to get the team to run as you see fit. Relationship with players. With me, it's beyond basketball. I always tell my team and any program in, it's beyond basketball. So it's grades and how they're behaving outside of school and just things of that nature, discussing some of their things they'd like to do outside of basketball, just so you build that relationship and bridging the gap between freshman and varsity. I feel as a JV coach, we're in the middle. Varsity coach doesn't necessarily deal with the freshman a lot. Freshman doesn't deal with varsity, but JV's right in between. So you bridge that gap with the teams and the coaches and just all around. So we're going to talk about creating a roster. At the JV level, you first start with communication with coaches. So at the JV level, we're in the middle. So there's times we bring freshmen up to play with us, and varsity takes sophomores from us to move up. So always want to communicate with coaches beforehand. So I do that before tryouts. All the coaches, we talk about players who we've seen in the fall and say, oh, this player has a chance of moving up to varsity. So I might need a freshman to come up to fill that void, depending on the player personnel. I know my last season, we had 2 sophomores go up. So I had some injuries, so I had to bring a freshman up, and it was a freshman that we already previously talked about. So the freshman coach knew that there was a chance if another player got moved up or too many injuries, that player would be moving up. During the tryout portion, I always do evaluations. So like I do little cards just with evaluations, and I give those evaluations to all the players that try out. It's over a 3-day period. I do cuts on the 3rd day. And players and parents beforehand, they are aware of everything, the expectations, how trials are going to be ran, and all those things. Program goals. So creating a roster that fits what the program is trying to build. So finding the right players. So it's not always about skill. It's about how they carry themselves and how they could develop. So sometimes it may not be the most skilled player, but it might be a player who works hard and always in the gym and they're willing to learn, and you could develop that player into something that the program needs, and it'd be beneficial for the player and the program. How many players to keep? So this number juggles depending on the year. There's some years that it's a struggle to find players, and other years you have a high number of players that you want to keep. I like to keep around 12. And usually the 11th and 12th guy, I always have a conversation with to let them know exactly the expectations, that you may not play a lot. There may be games that you may not play. Are you willing to accept this role? Now I tell players that doesn't mean that you can't earn minutes in practices and you could pass people up, but this is where you stand currently, just so they don't go in with expectations of, oh, I'm not playing, well, now I'm going to be a problem for the team. That they know where they stand, so they know that, okay, I need to outwork so-and-so to find my way up the ladder to earn minutes. And I've seen it go both ways, where a player comes in at number 12 and they end up being role player. I've had a player go from 12 to end up starting. And then I had a 12 player who's I had to remove from a team because they became a problem because they weren't getting the minutes and they weren't developing and those things, and they became a problem for the team instead of wanting to create that energy to improve themselves. Cuts. I talked to all the players one by one in a random order, so I don't cut all the players and then so it's just random. I call players in. I know who's getting cut, but I tell the players that I'm not gonna tell their business if they want to share if they got cut. There's always a exit. So where we do our cuts, it's so they don't have to go through the gym if they don't want to. That's their own personal business. You get some who are more emotional than others. I always discuss ways that they could improve their game. I talk positives, give them advice on how they could build their game for next year. I tell players, just because you didn't make this team this year, that doesn't mean that you cannot continue to work, continue to build, come back in the spring and summer and come to all of things again and keep working. And next year, try to earn your spot. So it's never you got cut, your career's over. It's yes, you got cut, but this is where you're lacking. These are the things you do well. So try to improve on these to better your chances the following season. Team expectations. So this goes along with being in touch with your varsity coach, knowing what the way the program is going. What are the expectations as a program? So that's always step one, I feel. So the program staples. So which plays are being ran from the freshman, JV, varsity level, different strategies and the drills. So you always want those. I've been lucky enough to have varsity coaches who give me a lot of freedom. They understand my position and they trust that I'm able to build my team and player development to benefit the program. So there's certain plays that programs run. We might have a motion that all levels run. We may have a defensive philosophy, so we're a man-to-man team. So we're gonna play majority man-to-man. That doesn't mean I might run a different type of zone. I might throw in a different press, but the main focus is that I'm still consistent with the principles of what the varsity coach wants in the program. There's certain practice drills that we do universally, just so, and I think that both case do have to move a freshman up mid-season. They at least know certain plays. I could teach them the rest, but they know the same thing from JV to varsity. If a player is doing well with me, okay, now it's time for them to make the jump to varsity. They know some of the varsity plays already. They're aware they're not brand new to those type of things. And then I have my own expectations for my team. I have different expectations that they have to go by with me as well. It's not, some are very similar to the varsity coaches that I coach with. Some may differ. I'll get into that a little later. Style of play is also a program thing where you want to discuss if you want to be a fast-paced team, you want to slow it down, you want to run more sets, you want to get in transition more. So you want to figure out how to incorporate what the program needs and also to fit your team in the moment. Varsity teams, they're able to have maybe a 6-7 post player that they may run their offense through a post. I may not have that luxury at the JV level. I may not have a 6-7 kid. A freshman may not have a 6-7 kid that they just run the post. So although we're running the same sets, our ideology of the season may be a little different. I may have to play more perimeter because I got a lot of small guys. So it just depends on the player personnel and understanding, trying to find that balance of the program and also what's best for your team in the moment, and just being able to communicate with the varsity coach and the same page of, yes, I know you guys are going through the post, but my roster, I may not be able to do those things. And I've had teams at the JV level that were small, and I had the luxury of having a really big team. My years at Dexter, my starting lineup went from 6'4" with my point guard. Then I had 2 6'7" and a 6'5" kid. And that was very rare, but I was extremely big and extremely long for a JV team. So I was able to utilize some different things at that level.
Coach, if I can ask you a question real quick. You talk about being on the same page with the varsity coach and whether players are moving or just in how you're developing the kids in the program. Do you meet with your varsity coach on a weekly basis? Is this just a conversation you're having in between practices? How do you know that you're going in the same direction?
So me, I'm very, what I talked about in the beginning, relationship with the varsity coach. I go into a situation when I decide where I'm coaching that it's going to be constant communication. So like I've been in programs where me and the varsity coach, we are almost connected a lot. We are constantly going over strategies. We're constantly talking. So we talk probably, the places I've been, me and the varsity coach talk probably every day. Just because they understand I'm a basketball junkie as well. I'm always in the gym. I'm always wanting to learn and develop, and I'm always around the varsity teams. So along with being a JV coach, I'm also a varsity assistant everywhere I've been. So I'm at varsity practices. So we're constantly talking all the time, and sometimes it's not ideal for lower level coaches, so JV coaches. Maybe they don't have the time to be at all the varsity practices. They may not have the time to spend 2 hours this and maybe an hour and a half at varsity practice. So I've been in situations where I've had coaches who understand that I have a knowledge and a understanding of the game where I don't know how it sounds, but I could be a varsity coach. So they know that. So it's constant communication. I only accepted programs where coaches we're gonna go back and forth. We're gonna have that communication because I want to have my own program. So in order to do that, I need to be able to communicate and go back and forth with the coach so I get their understanding of things, be at varsity practices, run and different things like that. So I've been in situations where I talk to my varsity coaches all day, every day.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yep. So A couple things about my teams. So just elaborate some on how I run my teams. It's ran not it's ran like a varsity team. I pride myself in wanting to eventually, when I decide that I'm going to be a varsity coach. So I tell my team that we're just another team. We're not a JV team. We're a basketball team. So we're going to run it as a basketball team. We have high expectations on and off the court. We have high energy practices. There's these molds that they know going in that, oh, Coach Hamilton, this is how he expects his team to run. We are constantly communicating. So I'm big on communication. Communication, if you're gonna be late, communication, if you're having trouble in class, communication, just communication in general. And then on the court, it's always communicating. So defense is a thing that I take pride in, and you got to be able to communicate in order to be a really good defensive team, I believe. So with that, where our practices are always communicating, all our drills, we're talking. In the beginning, I tell my players, just talk. You don't have to say anything strategy wise, because they may not know. They may not know the different rotations, but I just want talking. So sometimes they'll say each other's names. Sometimes they'll say random things. Any drill that we do, is talking. You say the person's name. We're always communicating. Anytime we have to do our conditioning through running, we're talking. So if we run a sprint, if we run a dock, the whole time they're running, they're talking. Because in a basketball game, you're moving while you have to talk to guys. I'm in help. I'm in the gap. Pick up this guy. Back screen. So you're constantly talking. So you have to practice that skill. So in order to get used to talking while you're a little tired, you have to practice talking while you're tired. So we are constantly communicating. And it makes, at first, the players, it's tougher on them because they may not be used to it. But with those expectations, it becomes more of a common theme, and it just takes off from there. They're used to it. They know, they hold each other accountable to it. So pretty much all my practices, all my team practices, it's loud. There's always chatter. There's always talking. And it translates well to games because they're always supporting each other. They're always talking from the bench to on the court. Practices are tough. I firmly believe that practices should be tougher than the games. When you go through the things in practices, the games are the fun. The games are when you take everything you've learned and you're able to compete against another team. We do competitive practices. I usually set team before practice so that they know going into a practice, I'll let them know who's on whose team. So they flip their jerseys. So the drills we do is team versus team. We might do a shooting drill, one player from this team, one player from that team. We may do a rebounding drill, two players from this team, two players from that team. So it's always a competitiveness where they compete. I think a lot of times as coaches, we assume that players know how to compete. So we just do drills that's all team and they're all on the same team. But competing, if you're not used to competing against others, when you go to a game, you're going to have that same unsureness. So in practices, it's all about competing. And my team's motto is no team will outwork us. So we work very hard in practices. We're always talking, go through that grind together. And the skill, we go through the skill. In my practices, there's usually 30 to 35 minutes every day of just skill work. And no matter what, we always have skill work, which I think is beneficial. Sometimes at the varsity level, they don't have that luxury because varsity has to scout other teams. They have to go through different strategies other teams doing. They might be playing a team that presses, so they're spending time on the break a press. They're spending time at the JV level. Yes, we want to win. Yes, I would love to win every game, but it's also the bigger picture of get these guys ready to compete at the varsity level. That's the main goal. So skill work and developing those skills is important. And that's in, so we may lose a game the day before, but the next practice, we're still doing our skill work. Like those are things that has to happen every day because they start building those skills. And then we start incorporating different strategies as it comes about, but it doesn't take time of our skill work. I think that's important to developing players for the program. So as a JV coach and as a lower level coach, you're always thinking of the program. You're always thinking about the program. So it may be, I could win this game now if I did this, but will it help the program? Will it help the player further himself in the program? So goes into my next slide, player development. What is best for the JV team versus what is best for the program? So examples that I use with that is if a player is 6'4" at the JV level, it's easy to put him in the post. It's easy to say, well, you're 6'4", you're our biggest kid, you play the post position, but at the varsity level, he may be a wing. His skill set is a wing. So as a JV coach, if I put him in the post, he could probably dominate there, but at the varsity level, he will probably struggle. So it's finding that balance of so this is why I'm in constant communication with the varsity coach of where do we see this player playing at the varsity level? Is this player a point guard? If this player is a point guard, I'm going to play him at point guard at the JV level. So he's used to running a team. So when he makes that transition to a varsity level, he has some knowledge of how to control a team. If a 6'4" kid's a wing, we see a wing at the varsity level, he could really shoot it. He has some skill to develop because he has a future at the wing. Then I, as the JV coach, have to work with him on the wing. I have to go through the struggles. I have to go through any of the bumps and bruises because my job is to get him ready for the varsity level. So of course, within that, I'm going to try to put a winning team out there. So we're still going to work different strategies, different things, but I got to find a balance of sacrificing the team wins sometimes for what's best for the program. And when your players know that, they are more confident, they trust you. They trust what you're telling them, they trust what you're teaching them, and they will go that much harder for you. When you build that relationship with players and parents and the coach and staff, so the varsity coaches, they trust what you're able to do and they will do more for you. So I've always had teams who genuinely know that I care about them, not just on the basketball court. It's grades, it's how you conduct yourselves. It's all these things that I talk about constantly, all the time, to the point where players will randomly come up to me, Coach Ham, I got an 85 in this math test. Just out of the blue. They'll tell me about a grade that they got. Or I check in with them. You need help in this class. Let's find you a tutor. Or the only time you could meet with your teachers this time, well, you could be late for practice, but you need to have a note from your teacher that you're with your teacher. So there's no penalty if it's something that's helping them in the classroom. It's no penalty if it's something that's they need a tutor. Oh, but I don't want to miss practice. Well, you have to get this. You have to take care of your education before you get on the court. There's no, once you're ready, you won't be knocked down because you go take care of a class. And my players trust me with that, where they'll tell me if they're hurt. They'll tell me, Coach, my knee's bothering me. I'm still gonna go, but I just want to let you know. So I might sit them out of drills. They may not want to, but I will say, no, well, you need to sit out this drill. Players in games, they'll tell me if they're tired, if they need a breather, because they trust that I will put them back in when I know they're ready. I think there's sometimes that players don't trust coaches, where they'll be tired and they won't let a coach know because they don't know if they're going to come back in the game. Or they make a mistake and I pull a kid, I always give them a chance to correct their mistake. So if I pull a kid for throwing 3 turnovers as a point guard, I'll bring him out, I'll talk to him, and I'll put him back in. I don't sit the player for the rest of the half or sit him for the game, because they have to learn to fix their mistakes. And it gives them that confidence to want to correct their mistakes. They want to correct their mistakes, so players know. And sometimes players, usually in the summer, it's been a weird year, but usually in the summer, I let players make a ton of mistakes. And sometimes they'll look at me during the game and wonder why I'm not taking them out. I've had a point guard ask me during timeout, why have you not taken me out the game yet? I'm struggling. Well, because you have to get through this. You have to figure it out. You have to go through this now. So during season, during varsity, you've been through it. You understand it. You're able to hit adversity and push through. And sometimes that's not something that they're used to. They're used to getting pulled if they're making mistakes and not going to make it in the game, or different things like that. Expanding players' knowledge. So with my JV teams, or with my teams, we have a ton of plays. For that, we do not run a ton of plays. I put in a ton of plays. My philosophy is the more they know, it helps them with varsity experience. Because in varsity, a lot of times, varsity coaches, you game plan, and you might see a team that hedges hard on the PNR, the pick and rolls. So you might put a play in that you slip the PNR to get early action. So you have to adjust on the fly a lot on varsity. For this game, we're going to run this play. We're going to put this in because this defense does this. So at the JV level, I just put in a ton of plays and practices just to get their brain going, how to, so they have to remember all these plays. We don't run a ton of plays, but it's in their wheelhouse. It's in their wheelhouse of knowledge. And during a timeout, I might go to a play that we've only talked about a few times, but when I'm drawing it up, they know the basic of we've seen this before. So they're aware of these type of things. Or midway through the season, we're going to add a play in that we talked about first week of practice, just so they're like, oh, it's new, but it's not brand new. So I think that helps with just their understanding, their learnings, to get them ready for the next level. So I think that's always big. It is well for me, just using those type of strategies. Another thing that I do, I'm sometimes it'd be a hard coach to play for at times. But my players know that I'm always for them and I always have their backs. It is always a us. It's always a we. So there's times, as I'm sure all coaches have done, we are not happy with the way we're playing. We're not happy with the way we're practicing, just depending on it could be a practice or a game at halftime or a timeout where we're just not happy. Like we're turning the ball over, we're not bringing a lot of energy, we're not communicating, we're not running hard in practice. And when I talk to my team, it's always us. We need to pick it up. We are playing bad. We are better than this. So they know that it's them, but it's also me, because clearly there's something that I'm not doing for why we're playing like this. So it's not just a player thing, it's also a coach's thing. So we need to do better. So that means the players need to do better, and I need to do better as a coach. And when players know that I'm putting myself in that boat, I'm holding my own self accountable, they're more receptive to it, because they believe it. Like they believe that, all right, well, he's not just blaming us. He's not saying, I taught you this play and you're running it wrong. It's what can I do to help them figure it out? Because if we're doing this, there's something I'm doing wrong as well.
So Coach, I want to just interject there. I think that's an amazing point. And for me personally, sometimes you look at the outcome isn't what we want. What are the players doing wrong? And really, you're saying you got to reflect back on yourself too. You got to be able to say, what can I do differently? Maybe it might not even be wrong for the coach, but it's not connecting. So there's got to be a different way, a different approach.
Right.
So I think that's an amazing point that you brought up. So just wanted to add that.
As a player, I feel that it resonates well with them, whereas they don't always feel they're at fault. It's okay, we need to fix that as a team. There's been games where we're clicking on all cylinders. We're hitting it's fun to watch. It is exciting to watch, and it's like, okay, we're getting it. Like we are getting it. We are unstoppable at this moment in time. Like everything is clicking. And there's times where things are just going terribly wrong. Where no matter what play you call, something's happening. We're not handling the pressure. We're just throwing the ball away. And when, as a coach, if I'm always using the players as the scapegoats, they're going to start doing the same to each other. Oh, it's this person's fault. I threw a perfect pass and they missed it. So I'm probably most hardest on my point guards. Just because I've always been a coach talks to the point guard talks to the team type of coach, where I want the point guard to take ownership of the team. This is your team. Like you are running the show. Like if I call a play, so I tell my team, if I'm yelling a play and the point guard may not hear me and they call something else, at that moment in time, you listen to the point guard. If they called it, that's what you run. Now at the timeout, I might tell the point guard, you got to hear me better because I called this. But at that time, if the point guard calls something, that's what you run. That's what they called. That's what you run. So it helps with confusion. Oh, I heard coach say this, but if the point guard calls something else, that's what you're running. So I give my point guards that confidence of, all right, this is fine. I'm in charge. I have ownership of the team. During free throws, unless they're shooting, the point guard comes to talk to me. And I would ask them, what do you see? What play do you want to run? Do you want to and they go back and forth with me. I see this, let's run this play. Okay, let's run that. Just to give them confidence in what they're doing. And it helps them grow as a player. I tell my guys, if they make a good pass and the guy fumbles the ball or the guy always say something positive to that guy. I'm going to find you again. Keep your hands ready. I got, like, if my shooter, I'm going to kick it back to you. Just give that guy that confidence that, okay, I may have made a mistake, but he still has confidence in me. So I'm going to be ready the next play. Instead of I throw a pass, a really good pass, hits the guy's fingers, and I put my head down in disgust, and they see that. So my teammate sees that. So now they're more tight instead of being like, okay, well, I don't want to make another mistake again. Instead of just being like, okay, next play. It's always, I preach next play. You're going to make mistakes. I tell my players there's no such thing as a perfect game. You're going to make mistakes. That's just fine. But you got to be willing to acknowledge that mistake and just keep going forward and keep pushing forward. In the benefit of the team. And I think those type of things where you build that relationship with players and they trust you, they will work even harder for you, for the team. They'll invest into what you're trying to build as a program. And for me as the JV coach, the freshmen who sometimes they'll see a JV practice and some of them get a little nervous. Like, oh, he got to be my coach next year. Because they might be like, oh, that's tough. But then once they're in it, they understand it more. They're like, oh, he's not as tough as it looked. We run, but we run in drills. I'm loud, but it's a lot of encouragement. We want to do things a certain way. We want to play a certain way. We want to have fun playing. So I'm big on on the bench, you're communicating. Just because you're out of the game doesn't mean you're not in the game. So if you see a back cut, you're screaming it out to the guys on the floor. You make a pass, you're pointing to the guy that finished. You point to the guy that passed to you. You're just excited for someone who makes a layup just like you made the layup. Like I talk about that early and often so the players start to understand, like, this is how we play. We're supporting each other. We're diving on the floor. If someone dives on the floor, we're running to pick them up. We're high-fiving. I don't know about now, but in a normal season, we're high-fiving and we're constantly chatter. We're doing all the things we're supposed to do. No man's alone. I also tell my guys, if a team's on defense and you're taught, you may not know what you're supposed to be doing, but sometimes just by talking, it confuses because it sounds like you know what you're doing. So if there's constant chatter, the offense might think like they know what they're doing. And you may be in all the wrong spots, but just by talking, it confuses the offense at times. So just building that into your norm, and it starts in practice with just the talking, kinds of communication. And it starts with sometimes total nonsense. Like beginning of practices when they're not used to it, they're talking about schoolwork, they're talking about TV shows, they're just talking. And that's fine. And then as we learn the basketball terminology, then they start saying those words. But they get used to talking that it becomes a norm. So when the transition to a varsity job?
And Coach, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. We got about 5 minutes left to go. So I just wanted to let you know on time as you get through this part. I definitely want to hear this. We got about 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So when the transition for a varsity job, to me, I think it's all about timing, program, staff, and being confident. So with the timing portion, I know there's times where some say, well, I've been a JV coach for this amount of years. I have to make that jump now, or it's going to be too late. And you may rush into a situation that doesn't fit you well. So with timing, I think timing and confidence go hand in hand. When you're confident in what you're able to do as a coach and what you're able to do for a program, you know that when the right job comes along and you feel confident in where you're at, you're able to make that jump. For me personally, I've had situations where I've turned down varsity jobs just because I wasn't ready with my current schedule, with my teaching, and just everything else outside of basketball wasn't in place how I wanted. So I didn't want to add that to my plate. And that was a personal decision, but I'm also very confident in my ability as a coach that knows that I know that there'll be other opportunities that I could apply for, that just because I didn't take this position at that time doesn't mean that nothing else will come about. Finding the right program. So every job has the potential to be a good job, but it may not be a good job for you. So there's certain situations where you have to see what am I going into? It's going to be a good fit for me, travel time, just different things. Like, is it going to, in my interest, or is it going to be if you go in to a situation where you're not 100% in, it's probably going to not affect it. If you're having doubts, I don't know about the travel, it's too far from my job, or I'm going to be rushing from school or my job to coaching, or that you may not be ready to make that jump. Staff. So I built a list of coaches that, some of them they would like me to take a varsity job very soon, but I have a collection of guys who I'm confident just by our talks, and that when that day comes that I do decide to make that jump, that I have coaches that are coming with me. So I have an assistant in mind. I have lower level coaches that I trust, that I feel will put the program in a great situation from day one, where it's like, okay, we're going to this place. I already have a freshman coach in mind. I have a JV coach in mind. I have some assistants in mind. So now we're coming in as a group with a lot of the same ideologies, a lot of the same mindsets. So now we're trying to build a program together. And sometimes that's not always the case, where you could take a program over and you could hire JV coaches and freshman coaches, and it could work perfectly great. But just being able to have some guy that you could go into it with, I think that just helps build a program, and it helps you because you always have someone to go to through the building process and maybe the struggles and all those things. But that's pretty much it. That's how I look at the JV level with things. So yeah, that's all I got for you.
That's awesome. I mean, the last 45 minutes has just been chock full of knowledge and nuggets and stuff I think coaches can take away. I do want to offer any coaches in the last minute or so that we have, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it real quick, or if you want to type it in the chat, I'll be happy to ask it for you. But this was phenomenal. Thank you for being a part of this and for giving it, an hour of your time. And I know it's an hour of your time, but it's been a decade in the making. All of your philosophy and the wisdom you put into this isn't just 1 hour. It's many hours in the gym and years. So great stuff. All right, coaches, I don't see anything coming through right now. Coach, where can we connect with you if they do have a question or they just want to learn more about you? Is there a social media handle or something where we can find you?
Yes, I'm all over social media. Let me get my correct tab. So on Twitter, it is Coach Hamilton. Coach HAMIL10. So Hamil, then the number 10. And then email jlhamilton21@gmail. You can also reach me at. Those are the two main. I'm always on Twitter and those type of things, tweeting out just different things about coaching and players and all those type of things. But yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, they are more than I've had people reach out, and I always respond.
Great. Well, coaches, thanks again to Coach Hamilton for giving his time and for you for attending. So connect with him on social media or via email. I'll make sure I get that out to everybody when I send out a follow-up email as well. The next presentation that we have going on will actually be the force baseline pressure defense that I'll be doing. So hopefully we'll see you for that one. But Coach Hamilton, thanks again. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.